And a very, very warm welcome back. Salarah here. As always, it's beautiful to be with you. And I'm really super excited about today's episode. I know it's going to speak to quite a few of you. I decided to do an episode on 10 ways that you might be unknowingly blocking what you want. So if you have been feeling a little bit frustrated because you have been trying to manifest something in your life and it hasn't quite happened the way you want, you've got the opposite of what you want, or it hasn't happened at all, then this could be the information that will make a difference to you on your journey. And this happens to all of us, including those who have been consciously manifesting for a long, long time. And there are so many ways that we unknowingly get in our own way and block the very things that we want to experience. Because manifestation, in my experience, it's definitely not just about deciding what you want, visualizing it, saying a few affirmations around it, and then waiting for the universe to deliver it. There's a part of me that kind of wishes it was that easy, but it is a little bit more complex than that. And I think if it was as easy as just focusing on what you want, visualizing it, saying the affirmations, and boom, you get what you want, so many of us would have mastered this years ago, and you would potentially not even be listening to this episode as a result of that. I have been teaching this work for nearly 2 decades. I can't believe I've actually said that out loud. And I have become far more interested in what actually sits underneath what we are consciously wishing for. You can consciously want a great love relationship. You can consciously want loads of money and abundance. You can consciously want a successful business. You can consciously want confidence. You can consciously want freedom and a beautiful home. But what you are practicing every single day will determine how quickly that comes to you. And if it does come to you, the quality that comes to you, and how easy it is to then keep hold of it when it does come. And this is where it's good to ponder on certain questions like, what am I expecting? What am I tolerating? Not just from myself, but from the world around me. What am I repeatedly thinking about? And this reminds me of a podcast episode I listened to the other day, and I can't remember the name of the guy. I feel really bad about that because he's so good. But he said, if you take a 24-hour period and the time that you are awake within that period, make a note of all the things that come into your mind, all the looping conversations, all the thoughts that you might have around money, fears, all that kind of overthinking. And you'll get a snapshot as to where your focus, your predominant focus is most of the time. And it is actually quite eye-opening when you do that. And also we can look at, what are you making certain things mean? If you don't get the job that you wanted, if the person doesn't text you back when they say that they will, you are looking at those through the filter of some of your own limiting beliefs. So you will naturally make them mean something that they may not mean at all, and end up buying into a narrative which is all illusionary. This is why looking after our mental health is actually really, really important, and understanding things like meaning making and what you think is the problem isn't actually the problem is actually really important, because it can help us to stay on the straight and narrow, so to speak. And also looking at, who are you actually being whilst you are waiting for the thing that you want? Are you desperate? Are you scratching around for things? Are you putting your faith in the wrong God, so to speak? Because that's what I've heard fear is so many times, is fear is actually putting your faith in the wrong God. Are you enjoying life? Are you being present with your friends and with your family? Are you looking after your mind and your body? Or are you in constant stress response all the time, not having any space to breathe, moving from one thing to the next, not really bringing any presence or quality into anything? So the person that you are being is actually way more important in the process leading up to your desired outcome. Because some of the biggest blocks that I've noticed when we are wanting to create and call something into our life, they're not actually that obvious at all. Of course, if they were obvious, then you may not be listening to this in the first place. So today I want to take you through 10 of the biggest ones that I see and that I have seen and I've experienced myself in the last 2 decades. Can't believe I've said that again. And as I go through these, pay attention to the ones that resonate with you. Some of them will, some of them won't. But definitely don't use them as an opportunity to judge yourself, belittle yourself, see yourself as a failure. Use these as an opportunity to learn, but also to become curious. Because when we are curious, we are open. And when we are open, we have awarenesses. And when we have awarenesses, we then have choice. And once we have choice, we can start to inject consciousness into doing things differently. So the first one is, and this is kind of like a bit of a foundational one. This is something that's really important. We master right in the beginning, but also keep an eye on right throughout our manifestation career. Is number one is you keep rehearsing the reality that you don't want to experience. And remember, as far as the law of attraction goes, where attention goes, energy flows. What you focus on, you will see more of. What you focus on expands. And this is probably one of the simplest yet most important manifestation principles. But I also think that this is probably one that is the most misunderstood as well. That's why the exercise of writing down what you think about in a 24-hour period is actually going to be quite an eye-opener for you, because then you can become really aware of where your attention is actually going. Because when you spend 10 minutes or 15 minutes or even 2 minutes visualizing what you want to experience in the morning, but then spend, let's just say, the next 15 hours mentally rehearsing everything you don't want and everything that's going wrong, that's where your dominant vibration is pointing towards experiencing more of. So if you are going throughout your day and you're looking at your bank account and your stomach's dropping, and then you're having to cancel direct debits or kick the can down the road somewhere else, that is where your dominant focus is going on creating more of. Let's just say you're focusing on your business not growing the way you want it to, or not getting the promotion. Other people around you might be getting the promotion, but you haven't had one in a long, long time. You might be focusing on, I wonder what's going on. Like, he or she hasn't messaged me for a while. Was it because I said this? Or was it because that happened? Or maybe it was because of, and we get lost in all of these loops. We might focus on, well, how come everybody else is moving forward and I'm not moving forward? And how come everything is changing for everyone else, but it's not changing for me? And we start noticing evidence in our reality to almost confirm our own fears. Because remember, where attention goes, energy flows. What you focus on expands. So if you're focusing on, I'm not good enough, why am I behind, nothing changes for me, you're going to see evidence to prove yourself right. But it's not to say that it is true. It's just because what you are focusing on is expanding. And then we don't just think about the problem, like I said, we start then actually manifesting it, because not only are we looking for evidence for it, but we are now starting to take action to try and stop that thing from happening. And that's where the whole self-fulfilling prophecy conversation comes in. And I think this is where psychology and manifestation overlap really beautifully. The brain is constantly filtering out an enormous amount of information. And once you've decided that something is true, you become incredibly good at seeing more and more and more of it. But remember, our subconscious mind, it doesn't actually know what thoughts we are thinking are real and what aren't real. It just takes what we are thinking as fact, and then we start to have a nervous system response to that. Because our nervous system then responds to it, we then think it is real, and we take ourselves down that self-fulfilling prophecy conversation. So let's say, for example, if the underlying belief is I'm not important, notice how quickly you spot every single moment that somebody doesn't prioritize you. We just keep looking for evidence to prove ourselves right the whole time, even though it wasn't true in the first place. Let's say the belief is money is hard to come by or money is hard to make. then you are absolutely going to notice every bill and every expense and every tight month. So one of the questions that I ask myself is, what am I rehearsing every single day? Not in those 10, 15 minutes when I'm journaling and when I'm doing my visualization. What is happening in between that time? Because it's actually in between that time that will be more telling as to why things aren't flowing the way you want them to than just the 10 minutes that you put in. So remember, it's not just what you put on your vision board, it's what you actually rehearsing in those more unconscious moments, because repetition becomes familiarity, and familiarity becomes your expectation almost. And expectation then has such an enormous influence on the reality that you experience. I'd be very keen to know. Let me know in the comments whether you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple. Let's have a conversation. Let me know what you make of that. Have you had a little bit of an aha moment as you've been listening? And then we go to number 2. So number 2 is you're treating every single challenge as evidence that something has gone wrong. And this is huge. This is a really big one. So we almost have like this really strange idea that when we're aligned and when we're fully healed, or we are in this higher vibration, that life should's a very interesting word. If you've listened to some of my past content, it's actually one of the most damaging, as Louise Hay says. But our life should become permanently easy, right? No, it doesn't. In fact, sometimes new challenges are evidence that we have actually moved forward and we're ready to expand and receive even more good, way beyond anything that we've ever imagined before. I've experienced this myself recently. And you can spend years dealing with the same patterns, the same relationships, the same emotional triggers. And one day you realize, oh my goodness, I haven't experienced that for a while. I'm experiencing a completely different set of challenges now. And that's really good. You might still be in the phase where you're still repeating the old same patterns and cycles. You know, it might be different people involved in some of your challenges, but the underlying feeling of them may be the same. That's when you know you haven't quite completed those yet. It just means that that old lesson is still dominating your reality. But let's just say you get new ones coming in. It can mean that the old lesson isn't dominating your life anymore, and you're experiencing new opportunities for consciousness expansion, new opportunities for abundance, new opportunities, for health, for wealth, you name it. So I don't think the purpose of our work is to actually arrive at some magical destination where nothing ever happens anymore. We are here to grow. We're here to evolve. We're here to become stronger, wiser, kinder, more compassionate, more connected. And the only way that we can do that is through challenges. So it's not about becoming somebody completely different. It's just about becoming somebody who can meet life and meet challenges differently. So you may have heard this before. So instead of immediately saying, like, why on earth is this happening to me? We can ask, what is this showing me? What is this bringing to the surface for me to take a look at and to heal? What is this asking me to learn? What is this asking me to get clarity on? You see, we ask different types of questions. The first, why is this happening to me, just keeps us locked in a victim vibration, in a survival vibration. Whereas the other one starts opening doors of opportunities for us to see our challenges through a completely different lens and then overcome them so that we can grow and expand and receive all the good things that are ready and waiting for us to evolve in order for them to come into our reality. And sometimes the thing that you don't want actually can give you one of the biggest gifts. It can give you clarity about what you do want to start with, but it can also help to heal on deeper levels things that are standing in your way from raising your vibration. There's so much more I can say about that one, but we'll just leave that one there. If you have any questions on that, of course, let me know. Did that one resonate with you? Are you waiting for some more? You might find some resonate, all of them resonate, but you might also be there going, actually, yeah, I haven't experienced that challenge for a while. That must mean I have evolved. Go me. So just keep an eye on what's going on, the stuff where you have evolved and the stuff where you are in evolution. So number 3, you're waiting for the manifestation to give you the feeling. Of course, we hear feeling first, manifestation second. That's something that Andy Dooley said. He's a really great and fun teacher, actually. I've enjoyed following him over the years. And in actual fact, in order for manifestation to come into fruition, it really is the other way around. And this is something I've been thinking about a huge amount recently in my own journey, is how we outsource. We outsource our happiness. We outsource our safety. We outsource our worth, our enoughness, our peace, our joy. We outsource absolutely everything. And we do that by saying, when the money comes, then I will relax and then I will feel safe. So we're outsourcing our safety. When I meet someone, that's when I will know that I'm important and I feel loved. We're outsourcing our importance and lovability to someone else. And those things can bring you temporary relief. Yes, you can temporarily feel loved and feel safe. But long term, that's not going to be sustainable for you. Because if outside circumstances change, if these people change, your life is going to feel like an absolute roller coaster. So becoming solid in ourselves is probably one of the most important things. Having the feeling of safety first, having the feeling of feeling important and feeling like you matter first. So we become that of which we want to attract. And we hear that a lot, and that can be quite frustrating, but it is so true. Also, another example is when my business reaches X amount of level, that's when I will feel successful. Until then, I won't feel successful. And until then, you're going to keep chasing it. Because remember, as Andy Dooley says, feeling first, manifestation second. Some people say, well, when my body looks like that and maybe points to, I don't know, somebody that they perceive to be healthy on the beach, that's when I'll feel confident within myself. Actually, it's about feeling confident first. And because you are now exuding that feeling of confidence, you'll naturally begin to take action to help you create that outcome. It's like a natural side effect. This next one's a real big one, and I see this all the time. Like when they acknowledge me, when I get the acknowledgement that I need, that's when I will feel like I'm a good person. That's when I will feel like I'm worthy. Can you see? Like we are giving our power, we are outsourcing everything to outside of us. The trouble with that is we are outsourcing that to other people and situations that are also experiencing their own wounds. And it's never ever sustainable. And it's not for them to feed you with safety and worth and like you matter. That's not their job. So quite often we end up, unbeknown to us, of course, we end up trying to take from the world, which is a very desperate energy, and it pushes everything away. Again, I'd be very interested to know what your thoughts are on this one. And then what we're doing is, I've kind of said this already, but we're making the external world responsible for producing our internal state. Can you see what's going on there? How disempowering that is? How you're not strong and solid in your own being. You are completely and utterly reliant on outside people and circumstances for you to feel safe, loved, like you're worthy and like you matter. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't want things, because it's natural for us to want things. It's part of the human experience. I love wanting things, absolutely love it. That desire is part of the beauty of our experience as human beings. But there's a huge energetic difference between the two. And I'd love to experience X, Y, and Z. So say, for example, you want to have the relationship, you want to have the deep success in your business. Oh, I'd love to experience that. That's so exciting. Versus, I really need this to happen in order for me to feel safe. I really need this to happen in order for me to feel validated. You see, there's a real difference between that natural kind of clean, wholesome desire and excitement versus without this, I'm nothing type energy. Without this, I'm not safe. Without this, I'm not okay. So one is desire and one is dependency. Of course, dependency comes from a space of lack. So you can ask yourself, what feeling am I expecting this manifestation to give me? So by having the relationship, the successful business, the good health, what am I expecting the feeling to be? So it could be a sense of security and freedom. It could be a sense of love and belonging, or peace. I hear peace a lot, or joy. And then the bigger question becomes, where can I begin generating some of that now? How can I generate that feeling of joy now? How can I generate that feeling of love now? How can I generate that feeling of stability and security now? Because otherwise, you're going to spend your whole life waiting to arrive somewhere. But what if you have already arrived there and you have some of those feelings that you can already tap into? And by tapping into those feelings that you already have, or you could learn how to cultivate, how about you already start experiencing that, and then you notice your outside world begin to match your internal state? Because your external reality is a mirror of what is going on inside of you. And that's massive. That can be so powerful. So let's go on to number 4. So number 4, and this is huge, it's being obsessed with the how it is going to happen. And this is so common. If you've been into the manifestation world for a while, you'll know this one. You'll be nodding along with me on this one. You decide what you want, and approximately, 3 seconds later, you might go, right, well, how's that going to happen? And you start kind of outlining how that might happen in your head. How am I going to meet them? I don't go out anywhere, or I don't want to meet somebody in a pub because I've heard not to meet people. And your mind just starts going on all these tangents. Like, where is the money going to come from? Because I only have a limited amount of money that I can earn through my work. And you start thinking of 100 things and blocking because you can't see how the universe can bring you money. And how is my business even going to grow anyway? I feel like I'm in a corridor and there's no doors. I've come to like this dead end. And you start trying to think about how your business will grow, when it will happen, and then start to orchestrate the entire route. But even then, it's so limited because we can't orchestrate an outcome when we only see such a limited vision of our reality. Whereas the universe can see so much more, so many different chance meetings, serendipity, opportunities. And leaving it up to the universe is actually a much wiser decision, because the more we hold on and the more we try and outline, the narrower the funnel for our good becomes. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with strategy. I love a little bit of strategy. I think it's so important. And there's certainly nothing wrong with action. I think it's really important to be a co-creator with the universe. We're not just here to have everything just landed on our lap, annoyingly, but we're not. I'm a great believer in all of that. But there's a big difference between a feeling of inspired action and a feeling of desperation and trying to control outcomes, because not knowing the outcome is frightening to you. So trying to control it brings about a feeling and a sense of safety. The issue with that is you're injecting a lower vibrational energy into all the action that you take. It's like a thread of desperation gets weaved through your manifestation, and it always keeps it low and limited as a result of that. And sometimes you genuinely cannot see the route from where you are. I've had so many things happen in my life where I couldn't see the route and I couldn't possibly have planned them. Whether it be people I've met, opportunities that have literally felt like they've appeared out of absolutely nowhere, conversations that led somewhere completely unexpected. So your responsibility is not necessarily knowing every step. Sometimes your responsibility is simply just to know the next one. What is my next step? And then just to take that step and then see what happens from there. And I remember Oprah Winfrey said once, it was something that I really loved hearing her say. It was a great reminder, and it might be a great reminder for you where you are right now too, is you don't need to know the whole journey. You just need to take the next step. What is my next step from here? So again, let me know in the comments if that resonated with you. Did that one speak to you? And let's move on to number 5. So number 5, you're trying to manifest from a version of yourself that you are simultaneously refusing. So what do I mean by that? So this is where I think manifestation becomes a lot deeper. So people often ask, well, how do I manifest this, Salarah? And I'm increasingly interested in another question. It's like, who would you need to become in order to hold something like that? Because you might say that you want this healthy relationship whilst continuously abandoning yourself to keep people. So in other words, what I mean by abandoning is saying yes when you mean no, not having boundaries and laughing something off if something hurts your feelings, that kind of thing. How on earth can you have a healthy relationship whilst continuing to abandon yourself? Can you see what I mean? There's kind of like a bit of a mismatch and a discrepancy there. Another example is you might want greater financial abundance, but whilst being absolutely terrified to charge properly for your work, if you are self-employed, or absolutely terrified to take the next leap of faith. You might, let's just say you want a peaceful life, but whilst repeatedly saying yes to things that you absolutely resent, taking on more and more things because you're worried about upsetting people or missing opportunities. So can you see how a peaceful life would never ever manifest as a result of the way that you are living it? So that's why it's so important. Like, you're trying to manifest from a version of yourself you're simultaneously refusing to become. Let's just say you might want visibility, and you want the visibility, but you might hide every time because you fear that somebody might judge you. Or you might want a completely different reality whilst continuing to make decisions from exactly the same identity that created your current reality. It's quite heady, this, isn't it, this one? And this is why manifestation, it isn't only about attraction. It is about embodiment. So it's about, I wouldn't necessarily say it's about becoming somebody different, because actually who we are in the light of our being is absolutely beautiful and powerful. It's just buried underneath loads and loads of layers of mistruths. And one way I describe it is a conversation I was having with my mentor. And it's almost like, imagine that you're in a completely blackened room, darkened room. Now there is a light on, and it's a very bright light. It's a 100-watt light bulb, but it's buried beneath, let's just say, 100 pitch black sheets. Every time you deal with one of your limiting beliefs, every time you go on a slightly deeper healing journey, every time you do something different, look after your mind, your body, your soul, whatever it might be, you remove one of those sheets. You're removing the mistruths. You're removing the layers of who you're not. And as you do so, the room slowly starts to become lighter and lighter, because the light of your being, which is there the whole time, is now able to shine through, because it's not being hidden by so much of the heavy limiting beliefs or wounds that you've been carrying for so long. So it's not necessarily about becoming someone different. It's about revealing who you were all along. Number 6, you're giving other people responsibility for your internal world. I kind of touched on this already, but I think this is really, really important one. And this is one of the deepest forms of outsourcing, one that I didn't even know that I was doing for so long, one my clients don't even know that they're doing. I'll be okay when they're okay with me. And then we overwork to try and make sure that they're not upset with us, that they understand us, or we might gossip about them to make ourselves feel better because we're feeling bad, or whatever it might be. It could be, I'll feel confident when they approve of this. That's when I'm going to feel confident, is when I get their approval. I will feel loved if they behave differently, if they show up differently, if they speak to me differently. That's when I will feel loved. Can you see what's going on here? There's so much outsourcing going on. I'll know that I'm good enough if I get chosen for the position. I'll know that I'm good enough if I get a certificate, if they acknowledge what I have done. Again, it's all this outsourcing. It's quite a big conversation that I'm working with so many people in my private coaching practice on this at the moment, because we all do it very differently, but it can be one of the biggest manifestation blocks. that I have come across yet. And as a result of outsourcing in this way, this is where we start contorting ourselves, if you like. And in that contortion, it shows up like the people pleasing, the over explaining, the over giving, ignoring our own needs, avoiding boundaries, blaming the other people, trying to manage their perception of us. And every time we do that, we are effectively saying, your opinion of me has way more authority than my relationship with myself. Now, this doesn't mean we stop caring about people. It doesn't mean we become selfish and emotionally unavailable. It just means recognizing where we have handed our power away, where we have outsourced our enoughness and our worthiness. And this is something that I explore really extensively with my clients. I do a 7-step process. It's almost like a recovery, abandonment and betrayal and rejection recovery process, where we become aware just how much we are outsourcing and abandoning ourselves and our self-worth. If that's something that has been speaking to you as you've been listening to this episode and some of my previous episodes, do feel free to reach out. I do have free 30-minute consultations, so we can have a little look and see if this is a process that will help you with that. So if any of this has spoken to you, feel free to reach out. We can talk about how that would look. And just going back into resentment, it's really interesting because if you're like I have been and you carry a lot of resentment towards other people, it's actually a deeper conversation around where you are actually betraying and abandoning yourself. I know it feels like it's an external problem, but it's actually not. When we start to get to the root of it, we actually see that we are the ones creating the issue in the first place. And we're outsourcing so much of our emotional worthiness and enoughness to other people. But what if we were able to cultivate that within ourselves? What if we were able to cultivate the worthiness, the enoughness, the I am important and I matter? Imagine that. We wouldn't go to such great lengths to try and prove ourselves and try and claw back some of this stuff that we felt is missing. And we become healthier and we lead a healthier life. And guess what happens? Our external reality starts to shift and mirror back to us the shifts we've made in ourselves, because our external world is a projection and a reflection of what is going on inside of us. It can be difficult to get your head around. It can be difficult to see this, but once you see this and you can pinpoint exactly where you are doing this, it can be incredibly empowering, because now you know exactly where to go in order to grow. And that has been one of the biggest change makers that I've noticed in my coaching practice. So moving on to number 7, you're trying to get rid of every uncomfortable emotion. This is a big one, of course. Like if an emotion comes up and it feels uncomfortable, of course, and it's a natural instinct to push it away. But actually, that's where it can cause a lot of problems, because you've got to feel in order to heal. Feeling is a very important part of the vibrational raising experience. Like, how on earth can we raise our vibration and feel deeper feelings of happiness and contentment and confidence and worthiness if we're carrying such a heavy load that has not been processed? And this is where I think some of the older manifestation teachings has probably done quite a disservice here, because some people become frightened of feeling sadness, of feeling bad, of feeling guilt, of feeling anger. Because if I'm feeling anger, like energy attracts like energy, then I'm going to attract something bad. Or if we're going through a grieving process, then it's like, well, I can't do that because that's a low vibration. So we kind of try and brush it under the carpet. Or if we're feeling anxiety, oh no, I can't feel this. I have to just get rid of this anxiety. I have to change this immediately. Now, that, in my experience, it doesn't work. It's called spiritual bypassing, and I speak a lot about that in my book. So if you haven't had a chance to read my book, The Only Way Out is In, Healing Hidden Patterns, Running Your Life, I highly recommend it. I go into a lot of detail about what spiritual bypassing is and how to recognize where you might be doing that. But for now, we'll stay on topic here. Is we are humans. We're having a human experience, and emotions can quite often contain a lot of information for us. And sometimes the anger is telling you that something isn't okay, that boundaries have been violated in some way or another, or resentment is showing you where you maybe have, unbeknown to you, of course, been overgiving and betraying yourself in some way. Sometimes jealousy is revealing a desire in you that you've been maybe frightened to acknowledge and claim for yourself. So, yeah, sometimes these things do need to be felt, not to sit in there perpetually, but to allow the emotion a bit of floor space so it can come up and it can move out. But if we don't allow it that floor space, it can't come up and it can't move out. So, guess what happens? It starts to compound. Our vibration gets heavy. So, it doesn't matter how many affirmations and visualizations we say, we're not going anywhere, because it's like we're carrying huge rocks in our vibrational field, if you like. So by feeling, you heal, you move those up, you dissolve them, and you move them out. And just think if there's anything else to say on that. So the important thing is to remember that the goal isn't to become somebody who never experiences uncomfortable emotions. If that's the goal, you will never, ever reach it. The work is learning how to listen to them without allowing them to unconsciously rule and dictate your life. Your feelings are important, they matter, and they contain vital information, but they don't need to be completely dismissed, and that you don't need to swim around in them either. It's part of a process of allowing them to come up and to move out. So that's a really, really important one. And let's moving on to number 8. You're trying to create a future whilst continuously living from the past. I think if we've suffered from some kind of hurt or pain or trauma, yeah, it is part of that. It does get to a point when you recognize that, though, and you're willing to move on. And this is where the hidden patterns do become really important in conversation, because your conscious mind can say, I really am ready now. I'm ready for something different. I'm done experiencing this. But then your subconscious mind will often say, well, that doesn't feel familiar to me. That might be good, but that doesn't feel familiar, because your nervous system is going to block anything that feels unfamiliar. And that includes safety, security, confidence, abundance, freedom. And that can be a massive game changer when we understand how the nervous system works in that way. Because, or shall I say, that's why somebody can repeatedly choose emotionally unavailable partners, or repeatedly recreate financial instability, or repeatedly overgive, overwork, become the rescuer in relationships, or keep finding themselves feeling overlooked. And like I said earlier on in the episode, it might be different people. It might be different workplaces. It might be different circumstances, but it's the same familiar emotional experience that will show up time and time again in different ways until it is resolved. And eventually you then have to stop asking, like, why does this keep happening to me? And start to become curious about, what is the pattern here? What part am I playing in this? And when you start asking questions like that, that's when the game really changes. When you start asking questions like, where have I experienced this feeling before? And then you can start noticing that, what am I actually doing when these patterns appear? And starting to ask different questions is what's going to help move you out of this. And this is where your power comes back, not through blame, not through gossiping, not through pointing the finger, but through awareness and taking personal responsibility for the part that you are creating, or the part that you are playing in these different situations. It's not comfortable to look at, because it does mean looking at ourselves in a completely different way, and that can be uncomfortable, but it's very freeing. So number 9, you confuse surrender with doing nothing. And you hear that so many times, don't you? Like, you've just got to surrender and hand it over to the universe. And that's very different to doing nothing. So this is another manifestation misconception. Well, I've just handed it over to the universe. Wonderful. And what are you doing? You can trust God, you can trust the universe, you can trust life, but you can still be an active participant in your reality. You can still pick up the phone and have the conversation. You can still put a pen to paper or finger to keyboard and apply for the opportunity, you can still play an active role. If it's a very unhealthy, toxic relationship, you can seek help or leave the relationship, set a boundary. You can say yes when you mean yes, no when you mean no. My philosophy increasingly comes down to this: do what is yours to do and release what isn't yours to control. And that's a completely different thing from sitting on the sofa waiting for opportunities to land in your lap or waiting for a sign. Manifestation is a very beautiful relationship between intention, inner work, and your active participation. You have to participate in your own life. And the final one, number 10, so you think the destination is where your life begins. This is a big one. And in actual fact, I think this is one of the biggest ones. So you think the destination is where your life begins. And this is interesting because we spend so much of our lives saying when X, Y, and Z happens. So when I feel better, when I have the confidence, when I lose the weight, when I've made the money, when I've met someone, when I've moved, when the children are older, when we settle down, when this difficult period ends, then I will relax. Then I will feel at peace. Then I will enjoy myself. But your life isn't waiting for you somewhere in the future. This is it. What you are doing now in this present moment determines what is happening in your future. Right now, you are creating what you are experiencing next. So it's not somewhere in the future. It's here. It's now. This bit, it might feel messy. It might feel uncertain. But this is the bit where you are present and figuring things out. The bit where some things feel wonderful and other things maybe just feel like, I don't know, complete pain in the you-know-what. This here, where you are right now, this is your life too. It's not somewhere in the future. Because the energy that you are coming from now determines where you are going in your future. So your future is now. And this is one of the greatest things that I've learned, that I don't want to sacrifice today in pursuit of tomorrow, because then I lose such powerful opportunity to create my tomorrow with how I am showing up in the now. I can want more and still appreciate what I have right now. I can have a vision and still enjoy where I am right now. There's so many blessings. We have so much more to be grateful than to be sorry for. I can be becoming, bearing in mind what I said about the light of who we are is already inside of us. We don't need to become someone different. So I guess it's more about, instead of becoming, it's removing who we thought we were to reveal who we already are. We can become that and still recognize the beauty of everything that we are right now. Like, none of these things are contradictory. In fact, I think that's one of the healthiest places that we can create from. So that was a lot of information to take on. Like I say, I'd absolutely love to hear from you. Which bit spoke to you? Do you have any questions? I'd absolutely love to know your questions on this. I'll probably do a Q&A on this for the next episode. So sending those questions in. Thank you for those who have already sent questions in. I always get so much from them, and it's really great feedback as well that other people have actually enjoyed the listeners' questions because they've spoken to them too. So as a closing, I'd like to just offer this. Perhaps manifestation, it isn't about asking, why haven't I got what I want yet? Maybe there are other questions that you could ask, better questions, like, what is it that I'm focusing on? What is it that I'm making the situation mean about myself? What is this experience actually showing me? What feeling am I outsourcing to somebody else? And how can I cultivate that feeling inside of me so that I'm not reliant upon them continuously feeding me, energetically, of course? Where am I trying to control how things are going to work out? Where am I abandoning myself? What patterns am I noticing that I just keep repeating? Different players, different people, but keep repeating. But also, what action is mine to take? And am I actually allowing myself to enjoy my life whilst I'm creating the next version of it? Or am I moaning and complaining that I haven't got what I want and wondering why my next day looks the same? Because after nearly 2 decades, I've said that 3 times already, of doing this work, I don't believe manifestation is about controlling every single detail of reality. I think it's about becoming increasingly conscious of the relationship that you're having with your current reality. Are you taking responsibility? Are you noticing the patterns? Do you have awareness? It's changing the things that are yours to change. It's allowing yourself to desire more without making where you are wrong. And ultimately, it's remembering that your power isn't waiting for you inside the manifestation. Your power is in who you are right now on the way to your manifestation. And perhaps that's the real work. It's been really beautiful to be with you. Thank you for joining me. If this has spoken to you, or you're thinking of somebody else that could do with hearing this information, please share the podcast. It'd be great if you are able to, of course, if you're driving, it's going to be a bit difficult, but to give me a little rating on Spotify, Apple, I'd really appreciate that. It really helps with the algorithm. And I'll also put some information to my book, The Only Way Out, is in the show notes in case you haven't had a chance to purchase that yet and you want to dive a little bit deeper into understanding spiritual bypassing. For now, it's been beautiful. I absolutely love my time with you, and I will be back with you same time next week. Take care. Bye for now.